Good day, everybody. Today I'm talking to Simon Kerrigan, who is the founder of Guide Healthcare. Good day, Simon. How are you?
Hey, Tony. I'm very well. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Simon. And Simon, thank you for agreeing to be part of the session with me today.
It's a pleasure. It's my first podcast. So I'm obviously excited to be here, a little bit nervous. I'm hoping for millions of views, Tony. I'm thinking Joe Rogan type numbers here. So, let's see how we go.
Good on you, Simon. Good on you. And Simon, are you happy for me to get into our first question?
More than happy. Let's do it.
Good on you, mate. Simon, can you please share a little about yourself, the place you were born, your education, your passion, the things that you enjoy doing, and one thing that the public might not know about you?
Yeah, so I grew up in Western Sydney, Penrith. Usually I try not to tell people that, but that's where I grew up. I'm one of three boys, spent my whole time, same house growing up in Penrith, obviously with three boys. Always had someone to play with, so it was good growing up out there. Very much into my sport, played lots of sport, anything to do with a bat and a ball, we were into. Nowadays still very much like the outdoors. I don't play a lot of structured sport anymore. Try and play a bit of golf when I can. Unfortunately, the aspirations of professional sport are no longer there. I went to school. I went to St Dominic's College up until year 10 out there. Switched over to St Mary's Senior High for year 11 and 12. And then actually moved down to Albury and did my physio degree at Charles Sturt Uni. Okay. I actually wanted to get into Sydney Uni. That was my goal when I was 18 and finishing school. Didn't get the UAI and ended up down in UAI, which I think is HEX now. Is that right? No. Anyway, whatever the University Admission Score, whatever they call it these days, showing my age. So I ended up down in Albury and it was brilliant. Had such a good time down there. Turned it out to be a blessing in disguise. So great to experience living away from home for the first time with a whole bunch of other students. So did my 4 years down there and then moved and initially lived down the south coast for a little while, obviously when you and I met a few years ago now. And I suppose something about me, I'm a bit of a reluctant physio. So actually I got about 2 years into my degree and just didn't really enjoy it. I thought I was going to be chasing after athletes. Mm-hmm. And then obviously at uni, I spent a lot of time, in hospitals, doing a lot of cardiorespiratory and neuro rehab and pediatrics and things that I weren't particularly interested in. And even the sporting stuff just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. When I finished uni, I was sure I was going to go and do something else. And my parents convinced me to give physio a go for 1 year. Sort of fell into aged care physio almost reluctantly. I basically went for the job because it was about 2 minutes from the beach. And I thought, coming from Penrith and Albury, I really wanted to be by the coast. Ended up, I'm sort of a reluctant physio, and 8 years later, I'm still working in aged care. And if anything, it's become my passion. So, that's maybe something people don't know.
Good on you, Simon, and good on your parents for actually coaxing or encouraging you to actually continue it for another year.
Turns out parents, offer pretty good advice most of the time. I realise that now I'm in my 30s.
Good on you, Simon. And thank you so much, Simon, for that. And Simon, moving on to our next question. Can you please share about your work experience prior to you starting Guide Healthcare?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I sort of touched on it there. I initially worked for a not-for-profit aged care provider down in Wollongong. When I started there, I was the primary physio. There was another physio who came in, I think, 1 day a week. Again, kind of fell into the role because it was near the beach, and that was all I was really looking for. I was quite fortunate though. Had a really supportive management both on site and who was looking after the physios for that organisation. And he really, I suppose, the physio coordinator in particular really nurtured me. He saw that I kind of had a bit of a passion for it, and basically over the next sort of 18 months, I sort of put my own spin on how I thought physio and aged care should be done. And I guess the primary aspect of that was I had a very exercise focus. So rather than focusing on really passive treatments like massage and use of electrical equipment, I really thought that the older adults who were living in the home should be moving a lot more. And you know, I was very fortunate in the fact that this home had a great gym space. I had some awesome physio aides. So I actually had 3 physio aides that I was working with, and they basically supported any idea that I had. Mm-hmm. And yeah, which was quite amazing because I'd come in some Mondays and be like, all right, we're going to put pedometers on everyone. You know, everyone needs to walk more. This is the only way we can do it. And they go, all right, we'll give it a go. And so I was constantly chopping and changing, and they really helped me out. And looking back, they set me up for success, both the managers and the physio aides and all the people down there. And I still have a close association with them, which is pretty awesome. I was then looking for maybe a bit of a step up, looking for a new opportunity, obviously being quite motivated. So I ended up falling into a startup, an external provider. At the time, there was one 12-hour contract. So over a period of about 4 years, kind of built that from one 12-hour contract to, I think it was around 60-odd full-time equivalent allied health staff when I left. But in that role, kind of moved from sole physio to area manager to operations manager to, I'm not even sure what the title was when I left, but basically looking after particularly the physios and the OTs who were working in the aged care space. So yeah, and then obviously off the back of that, started up Guide. So yeah, I think you've got more questions about that further down the line, but essentially, yeah, just had a bit of an idea with how I thought physio and aged care should be run. And that was kind of shaped from both of those 2 previous roles. So yeah, tried to kind of take what I learned and pull that into my own business.
Thank you, Simon. And I think you touched on a very important point, isn't it? The importance of teamwork and support within that framework to enable, enable you to do a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, certainly without, I think, particularly my attitude in those early days, like I went into this role without a lot of hope, I don't think. It was almost like I'll just do it for a year and then I'll do something else. And because of the way that I was supported in those roles, it allowed me to instill a passion for aged care that I don't think I would have got otherwise. So yeah, I've got those guys to thank for that, definitely.
Good on you, Simon, and thank you for sharing that. And Simon, moving on to our next question, can you please tell me, when did you start Guide Healthcare and what was the inspiration behind this entrepreneurial venture?
Yeah, so I registered Guide in April of 2018. It was an interesting time. I sort of spent a little while thinking about, firstly, what difference, what do I want to, how do I want to differentiate Guide from other external providers? So for your listeners or viewers that don't know too much about aged care, there is a lot of companies, quite big companies, who provide external allied health services who've been around a long time. Guide basically didn't pick up any work until around June, July of 2018. So we're basically around our second birthday now. So 2 years. We say the 1st of July is our birthday, so it's coming up in a couple of weeks. Wow. But yeah, I mean, I sat around and kind of thought, how do I differentiate what we're doing from these providers who have been around a long time? And hence kind of the name Guide. I mean, the reason Guide came about is because we wanted people to make decisions. We wanted them to tell us what they wanted and where they wanted to go. And then we wanted to just kind of show them the way. So a guide is obviously someone who shows people, in the direction that they want to go. And as far as what we are as health professionals, hopefully at Guide, what we want our staff to do, and certainly, it fits into our values that we're showing people the way that they want to go. So, yeah, I mean, it was fun coming up with names and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, in some ways I got a push, I think I needed a push to go and set it up. So I had multiple people who contributed to that process. I was almost a reluctant business owner, I think. And it did take a little while for me to be comfortable with pushing into the space. But yeah, to be honest, the main reason was because I felt like I had something to contribute. I felt like I had, there was ways that I thought that physio and other allied health services in aged care should be done. And so I wanted an opportunity to work in the space the way that I thought that it should be done. So it was really about trying to create change. And then I wanted to create a working environment for people where they felt really supported, they felt really happy. One of our key values is social justice, and really about giving back. And I kind of felt like the way that physiotherapy services have been delivered traditionally was very much focused in one area, and not so much. I felt like potentially those businesses got a lot of value, and in some ways the residents or the people living within the aged care homes and the providers that they work with didn't get that same kind of value. So it was really about how can I give back? How can we create a differentiation or a service that's kind of a little bit unique, and kind of reflected hopefully my values as a physio and as a person, and obviously the company values that we've tried to build around that. So I think I've answered your question. I think that was kind of the inspiration. So yeah, and hopefully again just to create a workplace where physios can come and feel supported. So like we want, we provide a lot of equipment. We kind of set up ways slightly differently to how I think it's been done traditionally. And yeah, we just really want a place that's supportive and fun and that hopefully both staff and residents get a lot of value out of.
Good on you, Simon. Good on you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And Simon, moving on to our next question, I believe you touched on this in your previous answer. Could you please share about Guide Healthcare's unique product offerings, that which is a standout for your customers?
Yeah, so it kind of falls back on that guide, or that sort of putting the consumer at the heart of our decisions. So, what we want to do is have that consumer focus. In aged care, we talk about consumer-directed care. So it's really, with the new care standards, for those of you who aren't familiar, it's really about putting, I know Tony, working in the aged care space, but, it's really about trying to think about the individual person and how we can, support that person to live a fulfilling, a healthy, to give them the quality of life that they want and deserve, sort of thing. So first and foremost, I think what's unique about us is there's no kind of cookie cutter approach. The way we implement our services is very much focused on the individual and the individual site. So we built systems around that. So when we implement, it's not like we're going to come in and give you this exact service. It's, we're going to do our groundwork and make sure that we're working towards the individual choices of your home. So that's kind of one thing. The other thing is we try and be very evidence-based. I've always had this kind of exercise-based approach and this kind of passion for helping people to move. I think, for so many reasons, for pain and for quality of life and function and mobility, all these things, certainly if we can keep people moving, it's going to help them in so many different areas. So we have a very exercise-based approch. Part of that is providing lots of equipment. So whenever we create a new service, we donate, quite a lot of equipment, and it's, it's things that you wouldn't necessarily associate with aged care. Mm-hmm. So we use things like kettlebells and medicine balls and battle ropes and, all manner of things that you would associate more so with maybe the exercise group at the park or the boot camp. Mm-hmm. And not so much with your 70 and 80 and 90-year-old, ladies and gentlemen that we have in residential aged care. So that's kind of unique, I think, and very much trying to inspire our staff to empower residents so that, because when you walk in with a kettlebell, most people who live in residential aged care kind of, get pretty scared and say, what are you doing to me? I'm too old for this, that kind of thing. So I think that's kind of our unique selling point. And then we need to find ways to inspire people, to motivate people. So we try and give people a purpose. So we run lots of events, exercise-based events. So we run like cross-site competitions. So we'll do like an 8 to 10 week training program, and then we'll organize an event where we put on extra staff and we provide equipment and we put on all the food. And these events are not like, sit around and hit a balloon. It's like, a 5-minute continuous kettlebell relay with like 8 kilo kettlebells in each hand. And they do a big, like a stone toss with like a medicine ball. And basically they're challenging. Like we try to not be patronizing. We try and be effective. And, the way we do that is by, graded exposure to exercise and trying to keep people moving. So look, we do stuff like that. And then obviously, again, back to our social justice stuff. I mean, COVID's such a, it's such a big thing at the moment. And so we recognized early on in this period that a lot of residents were going to end up in isolation and lockdown. So we put together a training package for homes, which basically the idea was that we would upskill carers so that they could do exercise-based interventions with residents within their rooms, or depending on what levels of isolation they had. So there was a daily training video, there was a daily handout sheet for residents. We ran a live Zoom exercise class every Thursday, and we also ran weekly challenges. And the idea being that we create a community outside of the community, so people aren't just stuck in their own four walls, but also they keep moving, stay healthy. So I guess, if we look at Unique, we're trying to create our own mold. Like we're trying to break out of what has traditionally been seen as a physiotherapy service in aged care. And so part of that is obviously trying to be innovative, trying to, look for new ideas and be evidence-based. So yeah, hopefully, that's our unique selling point, and hopefully we're starting to create a bit of a brand around that, and hopefully people recognize that that's what we're all about.
Good on you, Simon. And I think you touched on an important point, which was actually person-centered care and making it as fun as possible, depending upon, how capable that individual is. And I think it results in doing more work, but I think it's more enjoyable for the client who is actually receiving that support and care.
Definitely.
I think.
Well, I mean, look, aged care, unfortunately, at times we try to protect people, and the way we do that is by doing things for them, which means the more we do for them, the lower their capacity is, and progressive kind of deterioration. The other thing we do is treat them as old people. We kind of put them in boxes. It's like, well, you're old, you can't do these particular things, or you don't want to. And what we've found is actually, older people have such a competitive drive. It doesn't matter if you're 8 or 18 or 80, you still like winning at things. You still like being competitive. You like that sense of achievement, and so we try and tap into that, create purpose and motivation through that. And it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Good on you, Simon. Thanks for sharing that. And Simon, moving on to our next question. What lessons have you brought forth from your previous work experiences into guide healthcare?
Yeah. So it's a tricky one. Looking back on my career, there's certainly things that stand out. So look, I definitely learned a lot from my previous roles. Some of the things I took, certainly, I've worked with people with great work ethic, and particularly, looking at business owners and stuff like that. I can see how, someone's like levels of motivation and willingness to just put in those hours can really pay off. But certainly learn a lot of things. Like as a physio, you don't learn a lot about running a business or business development or relationship building or, things like that. They tend to be quite important. I think I took a lot of that from particularly my last role. But then obviously I think I've learned a lot about the type of manager and leader that I would like to be. I'm certainly not there yet, but I'm learning. I think I've learned a lot of key lessons over the last, my 6 years of working in different roles. And then probably most importantly, and touching back to what you and I spoke about at the start, but learning to surround yourself with good people and a good team. I think that makes a huge difference, and how important a supportive environment is. So, if you're surrounding yourself with good people and you're in an environment where you feel comfortable and supported, it makes a huge difference. Not just for myself, but for everyone within the team. And probably lastly, just about mentorship and having people that you can bounce off and ask for honest opinions and honest advice. I think I obviously met some really key people professionally along the way that have helped me out. So
good on you, Simon. Good on you, Simon, and that's good to hear. And Simon, moving on to our next one, could you please share about the highs in your business and for you personally before the coronavirus hit Australia and the world?
Yes. Oh, have I frozen? Oh, no, I'm back. Sorry, I think it froze on my end for a minute, but maybe we're okay. So there's been lots of highs. Yeah, I knew this question was coming. I tried to jot down a few things. So I suppose from looking at it from a guide perspective, look, our highs are our events primarily, like all those exercise-based events that we've run. We've run a few over the last couple of years, and they're the best days. Like, you see people come alive. You see people just get that sense of achievement and that joy, lots of laughing, lots of energy. It doesn't feel like an aged care space. Anyone who's spent a lot of time in aged care, when you get noise and laughter and like things that aren't necessarily associated with aged care, I find that, very, very fulfilling. Mm-hmm. So I love that. Last year for our Christmas party, we actually did a little thing called our guide gift run, mm-hmm. where we put together like over 200 gifts, and we actually travelled around in the Illawarra and dropped off little parcels to residents in some of the homes we support in the Illawarra. Mm-hmm. So that was a really proud moment, and like a really kind of, I got a lot of sense of a real high. It was a great, personally, it was really fulfilling, I suppose, to see our team, which had grown so much over the last kind of 12 months, all supporting each other. And I felt like it really reflected what we want to be about as a company. It really reflected our values of social justice and empowerment. And so that was really, really special. And we're going to do that every year. So yeah, we now look after homes in 3 states. So we're not huge, but we're getting there, and we're seeing some great success and working with some brilliant providers. So we're really happy about that. We also got an office just in time for COVID to hit, and then we had to shut it down. So we got an office about 4 weeks before offices had to shut down. Okay. But these things happen, and we were able to adapt and do everything remotely. But yeah, look, I guess it's, the biggest high is just continuing to see the team build and to continue to work with some really awesome people. And that's been a lot of fun. And I guess both from a business sense and personally, like I take a lot of, I guess, happiness and pride and stuff out of that. So yeah, that's, at the moment, work is almost all consuming. So my personal and my business life certainly, are very intertwined at the moment. Yeah.
Good on you, Simon. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing that. And moving on to our next one, Simon. So when the pandemic hit Australia, what were the steps you took to mitigate its effect on your business?
Yeah. Look, unprecedented. Both, for most people, sort of, globally, but certainly for myself, a challenge that just, I wasn't, I suppose, prepared for, I guess, or at least it wasn't on my radar, But look, first and foremost, we were focused on making sure that we gave the right information to staff. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the type of service that we provide, being very sensitive as far as, we're looking after elderly people. We're working with the most vulnerable people, particularly with this virus. So what we wanted to do was make sure that first and foremost, we looked after staff and they had the right information. So we certainly focused on that. As part of that, we wanted to make sure that then we were caring for those people who we were always trying to care for. So that was kind of step number one. So we did that in a couple of ways. We started a regular Friday. So every Friday we got together for half an hour, and I passed on the latest updates that were coming through. We also had regular emails. As soon as there were updates, we were getting those out to staff. But we actually launched our internal online platform during that period as well, which was really good timing, because it meant we could, we could put things up into our online platform. Staff could interact and chat, and make comment on those things, and we could make sure that that information was being received. We certainly made sure that all of our mandatory training around infection control and hand washing and all those sorts of things were reinforced. So we got our staff to redo those training modules. And we also did the Department of Health's infectious control training around COVID as well, just to make sure. So I guess that was kind of our priority. From an actual business perspective, I was fairly confident that we weren't going to be too heavily affected. Fortunately, from a business perspective, healthcare is an essential service. And I was fairly confident that homes would be still wanting to have physiotherapists on site because, whilst these lockdowns were occurring and there was lots of changes that providers were making internally to protect their residents, some of those are to do with more isolation and things. So physios are in a unique position where we can keep people moving and we can prevent those like secondary negative effects of inactivity and immobilization and those sorts of things. So I felt like we were going to play a really key role, and that was something obviously that we were quite proud to be able to do. I've written myself some notes here. I don't know what else I've missed. So yeah, look, the other thing I think is making sure that staff felt secure and comfortable in their role. So we use a HR consultancy. So I made sure that I was, in touch with them almost straight away. So I knew, okay, let's for argument's sake say that the providers that we work with say, well, we don't need a physio at the moment because we're limiting contact. What does that mean? What are our obligations as an employer to the staff? How do we make sure that we're looking after the staff? I wanted them to be very clear. So everything that we got information-wise, I then conveyed transparently. Fortunately, all the way along the way, it was good news for staff. We were always committed to making sure that everyone maintained their position. And so we didn't want to make any changes. But I think being transparent meant that staff felt confident. Again, I think we were very fortunate being in the position that we were. We weren't too negatively affected. And I think as far as mitigation, really all we did was to try and make sure that staff were informed and supported.
And I presume that you also ended up doing a lot of your physio sessions over video conferencing, if I'm not wrong. A few of the sessions?
Yeah, so most of what our staff do are like on site. Mm-hmm. So at the moment, we do a little bit of community-based stuff, and some of that community-based stuff actually did go via telehealth. And actually some of we actually do a little bit of short-term type work where we go to rural areas and we'll spend 2 weeks on site and then we revisit a few months later. So some of that work we did via telehealth, which was pretty strange. Mm-hmm. I delivered some manual handling training via telehealth, which was again quite strange. But yeah, me being on TV and trying to instruct people, actually you go around there and watch your back and lean forward and bend your knees. So yeah, that was good. And I suppose the only thing I missed just around like mitigating the effects on the business was we made sure that we were very clear and we had some very open communication with the clients. Mm-hmm. So like saying to them, this is what we've done to make sure that our staff are going to be safe and we're trying to limit the amount of risk on your residents and support you guys the best we can. So I suppose it was about this is what we've done internally and then communicating that with our clients so that they could feel reassured that we were creating action and being proactive around what we were doing with our staff. I think that was obviously very important as well.
That is excellent. I think you touched on a very important point, Simon. That is, when say the pandemic hit, you basically communicated across the board to your staff, to your stakeholders, to your clients, and everyone was on the same page. And that's such an important thing, isn't it, for a business?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think being proactive, the feedback that we got after, when we consistently said, okay, this is what we've done, straight away. And all the feedback that we got was, oh, that's excellent. Thank you for letting us know. And then, we just kept that kind of proactive, open lines of communication to make sure that people were confident. Our clients were confident in what we were doing. Certainly we try and do that all the time, but it's a pandemic, and particularly with the vulnerable population that we're working with, I think that worked quite well. I think those are the major changes. To be honest, COVID has been, as terrible as it's been, and I was affected personally, without going into detail, but, it has been a challenging time. But from a business perspective, it really has opened up some different avenues. Like our Friday meetings. I'm in St. Peters. I don't know if you can hear the plane going over, but it's forced us to look at how we connect staff, and we've had some really positive things come out of it. To be honest, it's really allowed us to have a look at more technology-based solutions. It's made us work, we're already a remote workforce. So because we had to find ways to connect staff, I mean, things like Zoom have been invaluable in connecting staff. And we see some real opportunities, with this type of like coming out of COVID, basically, as I know a lot of industries and businesses have. So yeah, it's been challenging, but I think there's a lot of positives.
Excellent, Simon. And Simon, moving on to our next question. So moving forward, what are your plans for your business?
Yeah, so look, aged care is kind of my passion, so aged care will continue to really, be an important part of the business, and I really want to grow it. I think what we're doing, I'm confident what we're doing is actually a really good service. At least I really hope it is, and I'm constantly looking for avenues to improve it. And now that we're building a really strong team and we're getting more people contribute to those ideas and visions, I really feel that we'll continue to become stronger and provide an even better service. So that's what I'd really like to continue to grow. There's so much change happening in aged care at the moment. So I'm really interested to see what comes out of the Royal Commission. Obviously, we've got a new funding tool, which is being trialled, which I've got my concerns about. But I always think with change comes opportunity. So I'm really interested to see what happens in the aged care space. And I think we're well placed. The fact that we're trying to break out of the traditional molds and create a focus on quality and be evidence-based and holistic and focus on the resident, I think will hold us in good stead, and hopefully, continue to attract good staff. So that's something that I'm really positive about, and that's part of the plan for the future, is to continue to strengthen that side of the business. But we also do healthcare recruitment through our people services division. So we do recruitment in the aged care space and in nursing. And we've got a full-time medical recruiter coming in to set up our medical division, which I'm pretty excited about. So hence why we have the office space. The plan will be to continue to grow our recruitment team. Again, the focus is on following the same values that we instill into our residential aged care services. So making decisions from the heart, focusing on our values, making sure that we provide a service that's we want to contribute. We want to make sure that we're putting good people in to build good teams, so that we just provide another avenue to support the spaces that we're working within. So whether that be in aged care or in the medical field or in hospitals. Excuse me. So that's exciting. I also just think there's so much opportunity in community care. So both in looking at in the older population through the community home support packages, or whether it's through NDIS. Basically, we've really focused on aged care because we didn't want to spread out too thin. So it was like, do this really well, establish some really good ground, some really good like a framework and a really good base there, and make sure we provide something that's quality. We've now spent a little bit of time focusing on the recruitment, but obviously as a physio, I like my clinical stuff as well, and I just think there's so much opportunity in community. But again, we're not kind of attacking it until we feel like we can go in it with the passion that we have for aged care. So it's something that's growing organically, but I think in the future that will certainly be something that forms a really key part of our service offerings. From an internal perspective, look, I want to keep fostering a positive workplace. I want to keep trying to build a culture. It's not something that I'm particularly not. I don't know if I want to say knowledgeable, but it's something I'm really enjoying, and it's something that I'm passionate about. Like, I think, workplace, you really want to go to a workplace that you enjoy. You want to feel supported. So building a culture is something that I'm really passionate about, and it's one of the things that, as I said, I'm enjoying the most. And yeah, we just basically, again, we just want to fulfill our values. So particularly that kind of social justice, keep doing that. Innovation being another one of our values that I really want to focus on. I think aged care needs innovation. We need new ideas. We need to be doing things differently. So yeah, plan for the future, keep giving back and keep being innovative. And hopefully, if we continue with being reliable and empowering residents and creating a good culture, I think we'll be well placed, but only time will tell.
Good on you, Simon. Good on you. And that's very encouraging to hear all these plans that you have for the future. And I think One thing that comes out as I talk to you, Simon, is that you are a people person. You know what I mean? You really care about your staff and you are really concerned about their welfare. So, you want to bring them all together as you move forward. And that's a great thing to see from your leadership.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, look, I feel a level of responsibility around, having people that are working, with you and for, to I guess, for the business. I mean, look, I know how important it is to love your job. You spend a lot of time there. So if everything that we can do to improve, I've got this real, I guess, passion or I think it's really important to create a great journey so what we're looking at the moment is like from pre-employment to onboarding to orientation, through work life, and then even to the conclusion of work. I mean, I'm realistic that not everyone's going to work with us forever, but if we can do as much as we can to, make people or to provide an environment that people enjoy working within, to give people opportunities, then if they do decide to go, then hopefully we'll have set them up to go off into, bigger and better things, or to chase their own passion or to set up their own business. I certainly think that we've got so many people that could go and do their own things and will contribute amazingly to whatever, whether it's aged care or in another aspect of healthcare or just in business in general. So we're not trying to lock people in. We want people to enjoy their time with us and look back on it as a sort of a fond working time. So yeah, I am. I guess, look, I try and make a lot of decisions from the heart and keep people in mind. That helps me to feel comfortable, I think, as well with what we're doing. So.
Good on you, Simon. Good on you. And Simon, moving on to our next one. So if you look back to the time from when Guide Healthcare commenced operations, what would you have done differently and why?
Yeah, so this one was tough. Look, I think the nice thing about me is I don't tend to dwell too much on the things that have gone horribly wrong. Like I certainly, I analyze things, I try and create change, but when I'm trying to think about what I'd do differently, I wasn't completely sure. I mean, the one thing that stands out is, I suppose, particularly up until the last 3 months, I was working full time on the floor as a physio and then trying to run a business as well. It was reasonably manageable for the most part. Certainly there's no 9 to 5. It was 9 to 5 and then 5 to 12 or whatever I had to do to try and keep the business being successful. But I think because of that, the way I allocated my time meant that I think sometimes our systems didn't keep up with our growth. I think that we let ourselves down at some points because of that. I think maybe we missed out on opportunities because of that. Like if I was more proactive in looking at, say, business growth as opposed to me working on the floor as a physio and sustaining, whatever contract we had, that may have meant that we could have, achieved more growth or, it's hard to say. But the kind of the opposite side of that coin is because I spent so much time on the floor, working directly with managers and registered nurses and care staff and cleaners and everyone else, like trying to embed myself into those homes, I think I've developed some really great relationships with those people and hopefully, that will hold us in good stead as well. So it's kind of double-edged sword. I don't know. It's hard to say whether that was a good idea or not, but I think if I could have found ways to free up some more of my time so that I could have put that time towards things that either strengthened what we were doing or helped us to grow, maybe that would have been a good idea. But yeah, other than that, I know I outsourced some work. There's been contracting work that I've not sort of from a physio perspective, but let's say, whether it's, I don't know, maybe legal and some other sort of aspects that I've sort of outsourced that in hindsight, maybe weren't the best decisions. But again, it's perfect for you in hindsight. But at the time, you kind of make decisions based on what you've got. So nothing to this point, touch wood, There's not too many regrets. I definitely haven't done it right the whole time, but like it's been a good journey, and you kind of learn, from those decisions, I guess.
Thank you. Thank you, Simon. Thank you. That's good to know. And Simon, moving on to our last question. So what are the life and business lessons that you would like to share with someone who is planning to start a venture, business, or a service in a similar sector to yours in Australia?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, trying to think about similar sector and taking that point in particular, I like to think that hopefully people will put the residents or their patients or, their clients at the heart of what they're doing. Try and prioritize those people. I talk to people about we're making profits from old people, and that's something that I don't take lightly, kind of thing. Like I suppose it's what I try and do is create the best possible service that we can. But if we just look at margins and we forget that human element, I really think we're letting down those people. So hopefully, step number one, do it for the right reasons, and try and put the consumer or the patient or the resident, at the heart of all your decisions. And I think that will hold you in good stead, I hope. Maybe you won't be the biggest, but if you can try and be the best, I think that's a good thing. It's pretty cliche, but I think authenticity and sincerity are really important. Vulnerability, I know those kind of words are certainly kind of buzzwords, but I try and be as honest as possible, both with management and staff and, everyone else. It's I try, and if I'm not having a good day, or, I try and use the lessons from whether I'm having a bad day or whatever, and say that, if something works for me and I've given myself the afternoon off, I'll say to the staff, like, guys, if you guys needed the afternoon off, take it. Sometimes we all need it. We can't just be workhorses. Let me know if anything's wrong. If I've fallen short in an area, I try and take accountability for it. And I think as a business owner, I think that's quite important. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. Be good at time management. I'm not. I can admit that. I'm learning, but I never used a calendar on my phone until the last 12 months, and so I've missed meetings, and and learn to lock time away. I'll try and juggle 50 things at a time, and then you end up with 20 things that are 80% done and 30 things that are 60% done, and you never get the 100. It's when are you going to finish things off? So that's definitely my shortfall. But I suppose if people can get good at knocking over really important things and prioritizing those really key tasks, getting it done, move on, I think that makes you feel a bit more fulfilled as well. I know sometimes I feel like, what have I done for the week? I've just built on some of the other things that I've had. So yeah, prioritize time and prioritize tasks, definitely. I think you should celebrate the wins. It's not always good. It's tough sometimes, you have good weeks and bad weeks. I think if you can celebrate those really good things, I think that really helps. Take those little steps. If you get a new contract or bring on new staff or new service offering, get an office, do something really cool. I think take your wins and celebrate with your team, I think is really important. What else? All right. I think you need to be careful, particularly in the early stages, around how you set up the financials of it. Without going into too much detail, I think, you find out pretty soon that invoices often don't get paid on time, and that can be a challenge. So I was fortunate that for the first 6 months, I didn't pull anything out of the business. When it was basically just me, it was, I built a nice kind of float there, and that's held me in good stead. So I think just plan around how you make sure that you create financial stability, not just for you, but for your staff. I mean, I spoke about that sense of responsibility, and I think, part of that is making sure that, every fortnight or every month, whenever your payroll is, that, you're not worrying about it. And that's certainly something that's, I think has helped to not put a whole heap of pressure on as a new business owner, because that hasn't been a worry, fortunately. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think you need to focus on that base. So try and get your structures right and your systems right, and then build on top of that. Otherwise, at times, it's not that it's created a hugely negative effect, but there's been times when I was like, I wish I put that in place earlier. And often you think about it, but because of how you're allocating your time, when I was working on the floor as a physio, there'd be things like, I need to get that done. But if I haven't, at some point you see a little crack, and that's the push that you need. But anyway, if you can get on top of those, Other little tips I thought of were like build your brand, focus on what we spoke about what our differentiating factors are as a service provider. And I think I try and highlight those. So look, we try and put out videos and social media content and do a lot of work on LinkedIn and just try and highlight what we're all about. I'm not saying we've had a huge amount of success out of that, but I've connected with so many different people and built some really great relationships that haven't necessarily led to a huge amount of business growth, but it's nice just to build that network and for people to understand what you're all about. And I think as you grow, that only strengthens, having a good brand and the brand that people, understand what you're about is can only be a good thing. Couple other things, I think find a great mentor and certainly build a good team around you. Like I've got some really, really, great people who I've got so much respect for, and I really appreciate everything they do for me because they take a lot of pressure off, and really good people can, make this journey so much more enjoyable. And finally, I think you need outlets. All right. So, I think there can be a lot of stress. And, there's no such thing as 9 to 5. It can be, 6 till midnight or later. So you need outlets. You need to give yourself some time. I think you really can kind of burn out. And there's been times when I've had to step away, and like my partner said to me, you need a break. We're going away for the weekend, like you're not working this weekend. I'm like, I have to. She says, no, you've got to go. So, take some time. I like going to the gym. I know everyone knows exercise is good for you, but certainly for me, that's my outlet. Hopefully those are some good tips.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Simon, for your time. And I think if there are some takeaways from what you've shared, one is, we have to thank your dad and mom for, helping you to persevere with your physio journey at the start. And I think you come across as a person who is person-centered. So you're really concerned about your staff and your clients. So that itself adds a lot of value into the business. And I think you are focused in looking after people to the best of your ability and to the best of your knowledge. And that is great. So building that team, I think, is such an important thing for any business. And I think you come across as a person who is really focused on your team. And that is really, really encouraging. And so from my side, Simon, I wish you and Guide Healthcare the very best into the future, and hope you guys reach greater heights as you move forward. So all the best, Simon, and thank you for your time.
Appreciate it, Tony. It's been good fun. I enjoyed the process. It's nice to actually stop and look back, and it kind of helped me to reflect. So I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me to be on. As I said, it's my first podcast, so I can tick that box.
Good on you, Simon. Thank you.
Been great. Thanks, Tony.